Only hot girls listen to IB Advices and Experiences podcast in their free time. So whoever's listening, hi sweetie, I see you, and warm welcome to IB podcast where I am the host, Amelia, and I hope you're gonna enjoy today's conversation and discussion we're gonna have, and let's just get straight into it. A little bit of a disclaimer for today's episode, because I'm going to be covering only one piece of advice I'm going to be sharing. This episode is going to be pretty much shorter than my usual content I'm producing. However, I find it really important that this episode is as short as possible because the piece of advice I'm about to give is, I believe, really phenomenal, and it's not my only opinion. Recently, I was discussing this idea of lazy exam study method technique studying stuff with my best friend, and she absolutely agreed with my point of view that the technique I'm gonna be sharing with you guys, also which was presented to me by my math teacher, is pretty much of a genius. And because I heard so many people complain about the stupidity of this technique and not taking it to the fullest potential, I feel like it's my responsibility now to turn your world upside down and show you some low-key studying method that you could be using, especially in the middle of the exam weeks when you already feel uptight and pressured and almost burning out. I feel like this is a low-key studying which could be easily done in a safe, cozy, aesthetic environment such as Starbucks. You don't need much for it because it helps you to identify your weaknesses, it helps you see where you're struggling, it helps you study straight to the point so you're not much missing on the material that is not going to be in a test. And I think it's enough of teasing and we just can straight go into it. And finally, I'm gonna tell you what technique I'm talking about. Okay, and the study method I've been all teasing you about is called studying past papers. And let me quickly add something to here before you click to another episode, because I know it sounds weird and absurd and a little bit silly of me saying this because it's a famous technique and a lot of people use it, but I just want to extend to its fullest potential. How you literally can use this technique to full on prepare for the exams and at the end be a low-key successful student with pretty decent grades with a minimum effort put into the preparation and studying. And let's extend it even more here. So what my teacher suggested me and my class doing is that at first he already had all the topics and subtopics we are gonna have on exam, so it's already easiest and more privileged for us. It was more narrowed down and easier. So what he asked us to do is to go and grab all of our past papers that we were collecting. So all the tests and quizzes we did, especially the ones that were like end of unit exams. He posted answers for all of these materials on Google Classroom, and additionally he uploaded some of the digital formatted tests in case we lost something. And here's where I find it really significant, because for me personally it is so much easier, more organized and productive to work on my iPad as a source of note-taking app. So I basically downloaded all the past tests we actually took and I got grades on my iPad note-taking app, and I started redoing them. And here where it gets really interesting. Obviously, because in my case I was supposed to revise everything I studied throughout the whole school year, it is normal for a brain to forget what you did half a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever. It is normal to forget. Therefore, I had to reteach myself. So I pulled out my computer and I was basically watching lots of tutorials, and I love doing my notes really organized. So besides using the second brain technique, I divided sort of my page, my test page, into 3 parts. So my working part of a page where I was doing all the calculations. On the side, I would write what steps I'm following and how I'm doing this. So if I would start a new equation I have no clue on how to do, I would watch a YouTube video and I would write notes on the side of how to do it. And at the most right corner, I would do notes of where I'm doing my basic mistakes. So it's more of a reflective side of page. I would write that. I would do comments for myself, or where I should pay attention more, or where is the part of me that feels uncertain and I need to practice maybe in more depth. This organization is pretty much centered around figuring out where are you at, where your knowledge of a subject at the current moment, before you try to dive into the concept you do not understand or you missed in class and you need to pay more attention to. So ideally, you would have two drafts of same tests you are studying as your past papers. The first one is identifying your weaknesses and relearning. It's more about understanding the concept. So even when you are facing a harder problem, harder equation, you know how to do it because you have all the knowledge in your brain. You have the concept and understanding of how to do simple problems and how to apply this smaller concept and understanding into a more massive issues you can then resolve. Therefore, with the first draft of you going over your tests, it's relearning and re-understanding. It's asking the smallest questions you could possibly think of. Even if they don't really relate to what you're studying, your goal at first is to understand the subject, the topic is in most depth you can possibly think of. The more, the better. This where I think AI goes in help because you can ask it a lot of questions and as to rephrase millions of times, as to tell it to you like it would talk to a second grader. So as the first draft of your past test is done, it's pretty much it. You could possibly stop here and be a low-key successful student at the end of the day after the exams. Obviously, exams might have something they previously did not put into the test, which you should always take in account on when committing to this lazy studying method. But at the same time, you're still going to be successful because usually how it works, everything you studied throughout the year was put on the test, and everything you studied throughout the topic was put on a test, and everything you studied throughout the year were put into the topics, and the topics are now put into the exam. However, you could obviously extend it even more and go into the second draft. I don't recommend going into a third draft because it's more of a memorizing, you sitting down trying to memorize your answers. What I would rather do when you are done with your second draft of revising and learning the past papers, you could simply create lots of flashcards, especially in the material that you doubt yourself for and you feel like require memorizing. It might not work for maths unless you are trying to memorize the formulas. I feel like blurring technique with the formulas would be really good just to seeing over the time if you would remember it all of a sudden. But with sciences and INS, with concepts, I feel like mini essays would go good with INS and obviously flashcards with the sciences. So this is also an extension for it. But the whole goal of this lazy technique is that you can pretty much succeed by studying just using the past papers, just going over once where you get this primal knowledge and understanding that also somewhere goes in depth. And just a quick reminder that, in fact, I believe this technique of studying past papers only is a great technique, especially when you are tired and you would rather prioritize your own health. I think it's really good for balancing out things and concentrating on something that is more of an importance for you at the current moment. You might feel like maybe it's not something that is going to work for you, and this is absolutely okay because we're all different and something that works out for me might not work out for you. And this is why you should always try out new things to learn more things about yourself and just know what things work out for you and what not, and how you could maybe adapt this study method for yourself, what you could add, what you could exclude, and how to make it better to suit your own identity. But overall, I still believe it's a great technique, and me and my friends were discussing it and she also agrees with it. Plus, my math teacher wouldn't just randomly give this technique if he knew it was not how it's gonna work. You could obviously add some textbook questions that might be significant for your exam if you have this privilege of already knowing something that is going to be on a test that maybe you never studied before, and so on and so on. There's a lot to add, but the whole concept is that you could pull it off just with the studying past papers, something you could do either alone or in a group of friends. I believe that studying with a group of friends is so much more fun. It might not always be as productive as you might assume it is, but freshen up, to socialize, to maybe have a good drink or a delicious meal, you could always combine these two, because even though it is an exam week, exam season, it does not mean that your life is supposed to end and you are tied up to your desk or bed whenever you're studying and you are not allowed to have fun, because this is not the point of life. Exams are gonna pass, and maybe 3 years later you would think, oh, I don't even care how well I did on that exam, because that's my perspective on me looking back on the past exams I took, for example, in primary school years. I don't care how well I did because it was so long ago. Why would I care about that thing? Obviously, it might influence me today, but overall, try to enjoy yourself and make the most out of this experience, and not be negative and bad talking to yourself, because negative self-talk is never a great choice. Try to be gentle, try out new things, go out for a walk, do some Pilates, make yourself something pink and cute, and just try to stay calm and know that you are trying your best, and just be proud of yourself. And this is where I'm gonna end this episode. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you gained a lot of positives from my monologues, and now you feel yourself a little bit more confident and relaxed of what one more study technique you could be using for studying for your exams. And maybe you already know that whenever I'm gonna be feeling lazy or procrastinating, or you're gonna be burnt out, you have this backup technique that could pull you through and doesn't require much of an effort. I hope you have a great day. I hope you will enjoy yourself, your company, maybe solitude time. Go pick up a book, take a break, and don't forget to be proud of yourself. Bye, and see you next episode.